Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. Conversations that cool. Kitchen talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. Conversations that cool. Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about?
Hey, hey. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
There it is. I was having some technical difficulties on my end, but we still going to make it work.
Yes, sir.
Still going to make it work. Kitchen Talk CTC, where conversations cook. I think my other co-host will be here shortly. Today we have not a stranger to the show, Mr. Darrick McGhee. Man, you know this is one of my favorite topics.
Yes,
And
sir.
this is the best time for us to have this discussion. Voting.
Yes, sir.
We're supposed to also have Mrs. Jami to come on here as well. Attorney Jami is going to come on and provide some insight as well.
Okay.
But let's get into it, man. What did you think about? Let's start off with the debates. Georgia debates.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on? Let's start off with Warnock.
I think Warnock was, he began very reserved, right? Trying to stick to the topics that is. I think he got pushed and provoked because of the constant antics and this, as he said, blatant untruths of Herschel Walker. Interestingly, and I've said this and I believe this, it's going to be very controversial, but that's who I am. If Reverend Warnock was not a black candidate, Herschel Walker would not be the Republican candidate.
I agree.
I mean, there's nothing else that there's nothing else about him that's enticing for the Republicans of Georgia than the fact that he's a black man, and so they need to try to counter that in that regard. I think Warnock has done a good job, right? He's actually running as an incumbent, right? So he can run on what he's done while he's been there, but the race isn't about policy, right? And I think that's the basis of what's going on in the country. It's no longer about the policy, it's about everything else. And I think if those who watched the debate, I think Warnock really tried to stick to answering the questions as they were. And then at some point you have to start becoming responsive and pushing back on the rhetoric and the lies in that regard. And so very, very interesting. I had discussion today with someone who really believes that Walker's going to win that race. And I'm not in that camp. What's interesting is he actually saw his fundraising went up after the abortion stuff came out. Like process that. It comes out many cases and his fundraising goes up. That's how committed the base is to getting him in that seat. So it's interesting. It has you on mute.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
All right, here we go. There we go. Uh-oh. It's trouble now. It's trouble.
What's going on, good people? Listen, y'all know how we come late to the picnic.
You know what? I love that you stated that because what's up, Fred? Bruce? Good to see you. I know you're going to like this conversation. It's good that you said that, Dr. Scott, because I hope we're not late to vote.
Come on now.
Oh, man.
I hope we are not late to vote. We could be late for everything else, but for this voting piece, I wanted to go into Stacey's piece in a second in terms of how she and some others, how do they sit in terms of these early polls where they're saying that they are behind in the polls. But before you came in, we were talking about first the Warnock debate. What did you think about that? Did you get a chance to catch that at all?
I'll be honest with you. I mean, there was nothing that said listen to Herschel Walker. I mean, if I can be honest, it's like there was I didn't feel like there was going to be anything to that debate. I mean, so yeah, no, I no.
You didn't miss anything. Besides the antics. Besides the antics, you really didn't miss anything. Yeah. What do you guys think about the Rubio?
Yeah.
Debate.
Yeah. You know, go ahead, Doc.
No, you go ahead, my brother. You're the man.
So I've known Rubio for a while because, of course, you know, I lobby in the Florida legislature, and he's a former legislator and a former speaker of the House. One thing about Marco Rubio, I mean, you exclude the debate where, you know, you had the water bottle years ago. He actually is a very skilled debater, right? The guy is really good in debates. He's very polished. He rarely shows emotions. I will tell you that I think he did a good job in the debate, but I also have to say that Demings has confirmed her legitimacy as a candidate.
Yes, she has.
She did not, you know, she was holding her own. She was pushing back. And here's the thing that people have to remember about being a female candidate, right? Is that you have to walk a fine line of how you debate, how you rebut, because you don't want to have a whining voice. You also don't want to come across as very, you know, rude, nasty, emotional. Then you factor in her being a black candidate, right? She has to be careful not being the angry black woman.
Right.
Regardless of what the topic is, regardless of emotions behind the topic, abortion being a good example, he has to walk that fine line. People are going to try to find every little thing, facial expression, body language, whatever it may be. And there were some tense moments in that debate, but she didn't back off, right? No. And to me, as a person who likes to watch debates and loves politics, I'm grateful for that, because up to this point, there are people who really hadn't had a chance to see her. And Marco Rubio really has, for the most part, coasted in his elections for this U.S. Senate seat until now. She has good money, great name ID, a really proven law enforcement record. She's done some good things in D.C., but she was polished. She was on the topics, and I think that's key. And she and was well versed in that regard. And so, hands down, thus far, that's been, to me, probably the best debate. Unfortunately, we won't get the pleasure of having multiple debates, right? They're only committing to one. All these races only committing to one debate.
I have to stop right there for a second. It's kind of sad that we're getting to that point where you only have one debate, and then we have to make a real decision, right? Correct. In terms of putting this person into office. Lisa just typed, women have to work extra hard. But I think when you want that vote, male or female, you got to work hard for that vote. And for just one debate, I think we're moving backwards in that area.
Now, and I think for the listening audience, I think it's important to put on record that there's only one debate in the U.S. Senate race here, in the gubernatorial race, mainly because the incumbents have only committed to one debate, not because their opponents wants more rates. They want more debate because they recognize and realize, you know, this is what you're trying to get in front of the voting population and get your out there. As an incumbent, you want to really try to handcuff your I'm using the word opponent for this context as much as possible, not give them that platform, especially with the way Congresswoman Demings performed. You know, if I'm the Rubio camp, I definitely don't want to give her too much airtime of a debate, because she was very polished. And I think that's the thing you want to try to undercut, is not giving her a chance to go toe to toe with him.
I agree. I think he made some missteps, and she picked up on it quickly, which is what you want to do.
Correct.
Especially one that politicians get dinged on a lot is, you said you were going to do X, and here we are years later, and you still haven't done it. But more importantly, you switch what you said you was going to do and say, no, I want to do something different. So, you know, it's hard.
But I was just going to say, I like the fact that that's the moderator.
Yeah.
Yes.
Even pounced on that. You know.
Yeah.
But you
know, and that's another thing in terms of debates. We need to have really good moderators.
There you go.
Somebody that's really keen is going to pick up and say, nah, let's go back to that. You said this, and kind of challenge all of the candidates, right? So not just one, but
on
all
both sides, not just one, but challenge both.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
But
because at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, as a person, a black person, American, you want the best candidate.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to, you want someone who's going to call both sides out when they're, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's time out for politics as usual. And just, we don't want to just get someone in just to say, oh, they're going to get in, and then they're not going to do anything to meet the needs of your community.
Correct.
You know,
I like that.
And at the end of the day, you know, because at the end of the day, I mean, and again, you know, we are one America, but we are a melting pot.
Correct.
And every group is making sure that they have someone from their group represented to make sure that the needs of their specific community within America is taken care of. And,
I like that you said that.
And I think that's one of the biggest things. We always talk about that because in the black community, we're so fragmented. We're so divided on what it means to our community and who represents our community best.
Yep. I like that you said we want to have the best person represent us. And I thought about that with Herschel Walker, right? And this other race. So you have candidates who are clearly not the best person for the job, right? So whether it's Democrat or Republican, I think we should, as a country, start moving towards electing folks who are the best fit for the job, right? So I want to see the best candidate, whether it's Democrat or Republican, go against each other. Let's put the best against the best so that we have the best for the race. Does that make sense?
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
Lisa asked a question. Yeah, Lisa asked the question: how do you recognize a who's the best candidate? How do you know who's the best candidate?
Good question. What do you guys think?
So that's a really good question. And here is the danger of responding to that question. Some people respond to that question by their disdain for the incumbent or the disdain for the opposing party, right? Again, let's use the Warnock in the Herschel Walker race. I said earlier, Doc, before you got on, were it not for Warnock being a black man, Herschel Walker would not be the Republican nominee in Georgia. There's nothing about Herschel Walker that is representative of what they want to have, but because they need to be able to offset a polished, educated, well-spoken, influential black man, you have Herschel Walker, and you know Herschel Walker is running on rhetoric, so he's not the best candidate. But here is the thing. The thing is, if you look at the primary race that Herschel Walker ultimately won, there were other people in that race, Republican side, who were definitely way more qualified. The problem is they didn't look like Warnock. And so you think about the best candidate, usually the best candidate in a lot of races are most times the most underfunded, right? Money plays a major role in races. That's why you go to the Val Demings race. Val Demings has raised a lot of money, right? And so when I say she's a formidable opponent, it's not just because she's well-spoken, things of that nature. She's also neck and neck with Rubio from a dollars and cents standpoint. And so when he's on TV, she's on TV. He's on the radio, she's on the radio, right? So she's literally able to go back and forth with him. You look at the Ron DeSantis, Charlie Crist race, Ron DeSantis is up 23-1 money-wise in that race. So like literally, there's no way you can compete with that type of money. So the best candidate for most times is the most underfunded person in the race. And the danger with that is that person then is unable to get their message out to a larger population. Let me give you a great example. If you go back to gubernatorial race of 2018 that Andrew Gillum was in, most polls, Andrew was down, right? Andrew actually was to the point of running out of money. Rumor had it he was going to drop out of the race, so on and so forth. What Andrew Gillum and his camp did that was just I don't want to say miraculous, but it was awesome, was they used the phone and maximized social media. And they took their message from their phone right to the people. And guess what they realized? That's free.
Mm-hmm.
All that's free. And because all that's free, I'm not exhausting my money. And so then Andrew will go to mom and pop locations, so on and so forth. The reason why I'm highlighting that is because there was no other way he's going to be able to last in that race if it came down to this money alone. He didn't have any, but he took it to where the people were. And I say that to say, back to Lisa's question, in the traditional way of campaigning, money makes a matter. This is the reason why the Florida Democratic Party struggles in Florida, because they cannot compete from a dollars and cents standpoint. And so the people, they have a hard time getting candidates. This is why you have Charlie Crist again running. Forget about ideology. It's because Charlie Crist can raise money, right? Mm-hmm. And so good people that you may want to see can't get the money together, and that's a challenge in these regards. And then when it comes down to it, you may have money, but then you run out of money too soon, right? Like people have money. You're going to see their money really in circulation the next 2 weeks, especially the last week going into the election. That's really when you start buying, getting on TV, getting on radio. That's when you sit on your money until then. If you're spending a lot of money right now, it's almost desperate spending. You wait till the 7 days before you start spending a lot of money, because you're ready to really get your name out there in an overwhelming place. Grassroots still matters, but you got to be able to go on TV.
Okay, before we continue to answer this question, Jami!
Hi, I'm so sorry I'm late. Hi.
It's all good.
Hello.
Welcome to the kitchen. This conversation is already heated.
Hey, y'all are cooking up something, I can tell.
Oh, man. So the question Lisa posed was, how do you know it's a good candidate?
Yeah.
We've already talked about the Warnock debate. We touched on the Rubio debate.
Okay.
And that question was brought up. And Darrick, I really do like your response to how do we know it's a good candidate? Yeah. And I do agree with you. Money plays a big factor. What do you think, Doc?
Yeah, I was just going to say, too, a lot of times, too, we don't even know if the best candidate is being brought to us by the party.
Yes.
Because, again, a lot of times the party they're pushing someone who sometimes is just a figurehead and is really just going to do what go along with the status quo and do what they want to do. Yeah. A lot of times they don't want someone who may buck against what they want to do as a party. You know what I mean? And sometimes if you might agree with somebody across the aisle, they'll say, okay, we don't want you because we want someone who's going to always agree with us on every issue the way we want it. So in some of these races, they're selecting someone who they feel like they can control. That's why I feel like the Republican Party, they selected Herschel Walker because at the end of the day, you're going to be able to control his voice.
I agree. Jami, what do you think?
Oh, wow. So I agree with Darrick about the Democratic Party. I'll go a step further that they're just tone deaf, in terms of messaging. And then also, as it relates to picking the best candidate, if we were to look at the governor's race, I don't believe that Charlie Crist was the best candidate. If you ever listen to him talk, it's nothing but rhetoric. I mean, he believes that, the way to Black people is Barack Obama. And he said, when asked about, how are you going to get the barbershop owner to leave the way he provides for his family to go and stand in line for hours to vote, his response was, I'm going to take Val Demings and I'm going to take Barack Obama. So he doesn't quite understand some of the issues regarding Black community. And if pressed, he says something about crime. Well, contrary to popular belief, not all Black people are criminals. And,
Right.
And that may not be the first thing on our mind. Social justice or criminal. I mean, granted, those are important things, but a lot of people right now are trying to eat. They're trying to figure out where they're going to live. They want to be able to take care of their family. And so the economy is always going to be an economic empowerment and development is always going to be on the top of a top issue. And I think he just kind of doesn't see that when it comes to a certain demographic. And so, but the Democratic Party's pushing him. They pushed him more than they pushed Nikki.
Right. Yeah.
Again, it's about, and again, I'm not saying she's the best candidate, he's the best candidate. What I'm saying though is, again, we have to question sometimes, is the best candidate for our party or whatever party, the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, is the best person being pushed. I mean, I'm listening to your comments and what you're saying, and that's it exactly.
Yeah. So
was he selected because they feel like you need a man to beat DeSantis?
I mean, I think he's obviously a career politician and he has name recognition. So I think that in and of itself, they didn't believe that Nikki Fried could do it. And there was a lot of other things against Nikki Fried, right? I think we can say that she kind of came out the gate a little late swinging, like her campaign really should have started sometime in 2021 instead of waiting, 3-4 months before, primaries, but to Darrick's point, you got to have money and you got to have TV, and that's going to cost. And you're competing with, Ron DeSantis, who has a lot of money. So, I think in that respect, but then that's where grassroots helps, right? And we saw that with Andrew's campaign.
Well, not just Andrew, we also saw that with Barack Obama's campaign.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to say that because as we know, Andrew's campaign didn't win. We didn't win with that one. That was not a win for them. But
I think it didn't win for a couple of reasons. I don't think it was because I think we got away from grassroots. I think that's kind of what happened with Andrew's campaign. We got away from it. So
yeah. Friends, I think it's important. You brought up Barack. Let's go back to what you said before, though, about the best candidate. If you go back to 2008, the National Democratic Party was trying to discourage Barack from running because they had basically prepared it for Hillary Clinton. They wanted him to wait his turn, right? And because Barack felt like it was his time, he said, absolutely not, I'm running now. But short of that, they were trying to offer him everything and to let her run now and you run later because they felt like she was the best candidate. And he did everything. I mean, talking about grassroots, he also did something that candidates still aren't doing like he did, which is he actually encouraged the $5 donation, $10 donations. Like he was taking all of that and it was maximizing himself. But if we be honest about 2008, he wasn't who they wanted. No, they wanted her, right? And so, and I think that's important on both sides of the aisle, from both political parties. Is, as you mentioned earlier, you want the candidate who's going to ultimately stay in line, stay on message, but most importantly, remain controlled.
Okay, so there's another piece to that, though. The piece of he is educated. You know, a lot of times we take this out the context that we need people who are. It's crazy how in America we value education. Well, we say we value education, right? We talk about some of these prestigious schools, but when it comes to having people in power, people who are essentially leading the country, it's not always the person with the
the skills, the ability, the mindset, the grit. I'm just saying, if we're talking about, and again, this is for both sides. I think if we're going to actually put people in place, we should be putting our best people forward. And I agree with what Barack did. I'm not going to wait because you're telling me it's my time. I'm not going to wait for a group to tell me when to move, when I know that I'm capable, I have the skill sets, I have the ability, and I know I have the chance to win, right? And even at that time, I didn't think Hillary was the person for the job.
Right.
I think she would have done like most of these other politicians have done, which is, I'm a career politician. I'm going to just get in place. I'm going to just make some, decisions. Who's make the choices of our candidate? It's hard. I think
Lisa LeRae does. Lisa LeRae does. That's who makes it. Lisa LeRae.
I know, Lisa.
The parties really do make the choice. I will say this. I think that Barack is an anomaly.
Yes.
I think we look at that sometimes as a prototype, but I think that there was accumulation, like a perfect storm, if you will. We were tired of the same old. Right. We were just coming out of a depression or about to go into one, or however you want to look at it, and a recession rather. Right. And so I think that was an anomaly. But I think that one thing I will say is that the Republicans do better than Democrats do is they either know what the messaging is, for their voter, or they create the messaging and get them to buy into that messaging. And they're very, I would say, kind of like, it's across, the messaging is across the board all around the country, right? It's very systematic, very robotic, it's very intentional. Whereas Democrats are all over the place, and we're usually a few years behind.
Okay, I have a question for you to really, for everybody. This is a good one. We keep telling people to go and vote.
Yeah.
Should we also be thinking about really becoming a voice in the party, i.e., not just saying that I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican or whatever party that I'm in, but I'm actively engaged so that when it comes time to select the individual that we want to go forth, it's not just by a vote. We have already vetted that person. We have already gone through a process, which they currently do, to say, okay, this is the person we want to put forward for the rest of the masses to vote for. Do you think there's enough of us helping to push that decision where you don't have that anomaly to happen again, where we know, this is the best person?
To answer your question, I think it's ran by the old guard. And I don't, to be very direct, think there's enough of us meaning forward thinking, progressive, whatever you want to call it, but people who actually have their boots on the ground and they see the issues that are important to people because they live them. You got a lot of politicos. You got a lot people who are professed, political intellectuals, and they're part of the old guard. And so this is how we've done it. This is the way we're going to do it. We need this much money. We need to put up this type of candidate. And they make very little room for new blood to really come in and shake things up and say, we need something new. We need something that's a little bit more refreshing. We need to pay attention to what our voters actually need. And so, to answer your question directly, no, I don't think there is enough of us. And I think that the Democratic Party, and I know this is not about that necessarily, but I think they need to do like an overhaul completely. I think they need to be turned upside down and turned back right side up, and then turn back upside down, and like shake it up a bit and try something completely different.
So I agree with that. And I've said this before on some previous episodes of the show. if you do a comparison between the two major parties, the one thing the Republicans in Florida do a really good job of is they have a starting five and a bench. Like right now, today, as we're sitting here, Republicans are already preparing for 2026 open ticket gubernatorial race.
Correct.
I can name at least 5 candidates right now that are positioning themselves for 2026 that are currently in office now. That's going to use their office to get their message out for 2026, right? Because of that, you always have that rotation going.
Yep.
If you look at it from a Charlie Crist perspective, from a Democratic standpoint, it's hard to motivate the electorate when they keep seeing the same people on the ticket over and over again, right? Charlie has run literally for governor in all 3 as a Republican, independent, and I mean, this is like his 4th time running for governor, right?
Correct.
It's hard to get people to excited, especially younger voters, because at the end of the day, they're looking at literally their grandparents almost in a sense running for office. It's like, you don't even relate to what I'm dealing with. And the challenge of that is, so come November the 22nd, when the House and the Senate of Florida does organizational session, they're going to bring in for the first time at least 3 Black Republicans, at least 3. I say at least because depending on what happened with the Owsley and Simon race, it could be 4, but at least 3, which is historical, right? They've never had 3 Black Republicans in the legislature at the same time in Florida. I'm only bringing that up because what the Republican Party has started doing a lot more of is now starting to identify, engage, and incentivize minority Republicans, mainly Blacks, to get them to run. And here is why, because now you want to start showing Black voters that, hey, you don't have to be married to the Democratic Party now. Here's some look like you on this side as well. Now, if you start listening to the platforms of the individuals, it may differ. Fact of the matter is, when you wake up and you go to bed, go to bed Black, right? So you start to see this thing happening because Republicans, and money plays into this too, but they're already forward thinking years out. It makes a good point. The old guard is so strong. They're so strong. And you're talking about from a national standpoint, our federal leaders in DC are all late 70s to early 80s in their age, right? That's the old guard that won't let go. But you can bring it here to Florida. Like that old guard won't let go. And so when you start bringing these ideas of how to attract those young voters, how to get them excited, get them motivated, most on both sides, their ears get deafened because they don't want to hear that. And so when you start looking at, for the first time in Florida's history of voter registration, Republicans out-registered Democrats, right? They're starting to see how that machine works. Because what Democrats have always done, in my opinion, is they automatically assume we got the Blacks.
Correct.
Got the Blacks. We got the Blacks. Went to wasting time over there. Or we just, hey, just dangle a shining object, keep their attention, whatever it may be. That stuff doesn't work anymore because what's happening is we're becoming more educated. And so now we're starting to say, okay, what else are you going to do for me? Can't just come to the church. What else are you going to do for me? I don't care about the fish fry. What are you going to do for me? We want more because we're now raising our families, right? We're raising families, as Jami mentioned. We're trying to survive and take care of our households. And so I may not be worried about crime, but I am worried about cost of living, right?
So
these things start mattering.
Let me ask you.
That wasn't even a word. I got to correct myself. Hold on now. Things stop they don't matter anymore. Listen, I can't be bad in my English. Come on, man. Come on, brother. Don't do me like that.
No, I can't. As a matter of fact, I was going to twist it. I said, should they turn it around? Because what you stated is actually what Jami just stated.
Correct.
I think that the Republican Party did just that. They did a shakeup and a shakedown. And they said, okay, we need to bring some faces to our table so that people can say, hey, this person looks like me. This person thinks like me. I may want to start voting for this person. But I still do think there's a hidden agenda that we sometimes miss out. I heard this from, and it was kind of crazy because I heard this from Steve Harvey. He said, I don't vote for me. I vote for my community, right? I'm good. I'm really voting for the people who don't have a voice because I could vote for this other person who aligns with my views, who aligns with my pockets. But I'm really thinking about the people who don't and how they align. Dr. Scott, what do you think?
You know what I was thinking? I was thinking about how, and just stay with me for a second. You know how they say, don't tell a person what to think, but teach them how to think?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And so we say that, yet and still we have a large percentage of the population who don't want to put the work in to think.
I just said that in my class.
Most people want to be led.
Yep.
Yes.
And so when you think about that, the Democratic Party is not doing a very good job of putting forth leaders in which people want to be led by.
Yes.
Which makes it difficult to galvanize and get those people going. Because again, a lot of times your message is not resonating with me in the sense that with which I want to follow. And one of the things I noticed about the Republican Party is they know how to target their rhetoric, whatever they're saying, to that group of voters that, these people normally won't come out and vote. But if I get them stirred up enough, they're going to come out and vote. The other group, they're going to vote regardless because they understand at the end of the day, this is our core values. This is what we do. This is what we believe. These are the core things. So I just think, and is that sometimes we have to do a better job. And it goes back to what you were saying too, of vetting the candidates.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Putting, doing a good job using things like this particular show, whatever, to really go down and break down the candidates and break down their history, and so that the people really get to see, hey, look, this is who this person track record says they are. Not what they're saying with their mouth, but this is what their track record says. Now you have the civil duty, the responsibility now to go out and vote based on understanding these particular things, but giving them more information and trying to help them to really think and not just be, just herded towards, oh, we're just gonna herd them to the poll, they'll come out. No, give them something to really chew on and sink their teeth into.
Jami, I want to ask you, because you've helped several candidates at this point try to engage the party to vote for them. So you have led. How would I describe that?
Well, I have to say I agree with Dr. Scott completely. You have to have a dynamic candidate that's going to really and truly, I know it sounds crazy, but most people don't want to think, like after you've done your job, you come home, you've gotten food together, you got kids together, some of us don't even think going home. We just get in the car and it just goes. So, I can't tell you, and I'm sure all of you get it too, how many people during this time of the year will text you or call you and say, hey, I got my ballot. Who do I vote for?
Yeah.
So most people, want to be led when it comes to that. And so in order to bring people out in an off season like this is, right? This is not a presidential election year. You really have to have a dynamic candidate that is going to speak something anew or fresh. And so the campaigns that I had the pleasure of being involved in were all candidates that really were something new. They were something other than the establishment. And it really encouraged people to get out and vote. And so, I think there's something to be said about breaking away from the establishment and having a different vision and being able to articulate that. But I think more importantly, the Democratic Party just has to do a better job of getting somebody out there that's dynamic. I mean, let's just be real. Chris is just not dynamic, and I'm not, I like him, but I can't see him getting the Tallahassee employee that is picking up trash or emptying out trash, and they're doing it from 7 to 7, to say, okay, I'm going to take a couple hours that I'm given, to go and vote today. I'm going to take that to go vote for him. I can't see it. I don't think he brings that out of people.
And that's crazy, because Lisa just asked that question, how important is the midterm?
Yeah.
Right. So here, the midterm is not as glamorous or as drama, as a regular election, but the value, the importance of it holds so much weight, for the current president, as well as moving forward to the next president. So what can we do to get them out besides, having that charismatic leader, new voice, new vision? What can we do? I like the piece where you said, they got to take the day off to go or an hour off to go and vote. I think our country has to do something in terms of saying, hey, because it's a voting day, you get the day off. Now, I've thought about this, and I say, you know what? People still might not go and vote, even though they got the day off.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So I think there's a lot that we need to do to spark that interest for our midterm elections. But there's another piece I wanted to hit back on, Darrick, is how important is it to have that information? Jami, you kind of talked about it as well. We have candidates now who have platforms that are not really platforms. It's just a bunch of few things on the line. So when it's time to go and vote, they calling me like, hey, friends, who should I vote for? I go to the candidate's platform, and there's nothing for me to really gauge to say, this is why I should vote for this person. Our current governor literally had nothing on his platform, but still won the race. How do you, what do we do?
So all of this is strategic, though. I mean, I think we got to be honest about it. Strategic. And truthfully, I mean, when the candidates are not putting any material out there, it's all strategic. It also speaks to the times that we're in. When Rick Scott won governor in 2010, he ran with a 777 plan, right? It was very detailed on his website. But if you ever ask anybody, what was Rick Scott's platform? What are they going to say? Jobs. That's all he talked about, right? Everywhere he went, that was the only thing he talked about was jobs. Every audience, every setting, that was it. Jobs, jobs, jobs. And it may have worn you out, may have frustrated you. But if you go back to when he ran, he wasn't a Republican nominee, guy they wanted. Everybody was behind Bill McCullum. He beats McCullum. That was the year Sink's supposed to become governor. He beat Sink. He had a 777 plan that most people don't know anything about, because ultimately it went from, this 777 plan, all of a sudden it was like 7 years, 7 million, 700,000, something like that. They went from that to one word because the shift was taking place. So also remember now, Rick Scott and others came in on a Tea Party wave.
Yes.
Right. That wave put a lot of people in office that probably wouldn't have got it any other way. But that was the beginning of less platform. If you look at when he ran in 2014 and won, right, when he beat Charlie Crist, he didn't have a thick platform. He did not have the same thing he had 4 years prior, because
that's correct.
The electorate was no longer going to your website trying to download a long platform. They weren't doing it anymore. So now what you're doing is you're doing a couple of TV ads, you're doing some social media things of that nature. Most of these candidates are now putting everything in your face through social media platforming. And here is why.
Or your mailbox.
The studies have proven it, is that people's attention span is no longer what it used to be because of social media usage, right? And so all of a sudden now, nobody's going to sit down and read a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 page platform.
That's true.
You got to give it to them quick, fast, in a hurry, right? And so when you look at it from that standpoint, it's very hard I'm a nerd, dude. Like, listen, I'm a nerd, right? This stuff, I get excited about this stuff, right? So I'm gonna sit and read everything I can, question everything. So not only do I work in politics and lobby, I also pastor. So on Monday night, for example, Monday coming up, I'm doing a whole live video with my church on help me understand my ballot. Literally walking them through the ballot, not endorsing anybody, walking through every race, hear who the individuals are, things of that nature, because most people on the back of my church have no idea who these people are, right?
Yeah.
And these ballots are getting thicker and thicker. And I'm gonna say this to you all, a little off topic, but it's important. The pressure on the ballot for the Democrats is the pressure on the ballot in Democrats really is Val Demings. And here's why it's on Val. Val's the first race on the ballot.
Yep.
Right. So she needs to turn out enough people interested in her race, have everybody else down ticket. And that's the challenge. If you go back to Andrew's race, when Andrew got to the general, I feel like the Democratic Party put every other Democratic candidate on his bandwagon. So now you're being drugged down.
You're right.
By other races that can't raise money or win. Now they're wanting you to help uplift these individuals. And so you're compromising everything. When you look at candidates, most candidates, let's use the House, Florida House, right? There's 78 Republicans out of 120 right now. Most of them have no real platform, none whatsoever. What they're good at is the rhetoric. And here's the thing, as Jami said earlier, the rhetoric is literally what people are going after now. It's that one or two sound bites, right? If you look at the commercial they have about Alden and ask her, "We take any money from anybody?" and she says, she said yes. Right? Now, if you know anything about it, you know there was some editing done.
Right.
But nobody's gonna go look for the original video.
Right.
They're gonna judge it based on what they see, because that's how it's being done now. And the challenge for these races is I'm not motivated, right? I like all this stuff. I'm not motivated to do anything either, because it's the same old. Like there's nothing about Charlie Crist that makes me feel like it's going to be different this go around, right?
No.
Camera's on, he's great. Substance is not there. You know what you're getting yourself into. You absolutely know what you're getting yourself into. And so when go back to the question Lisa asked earlier, it's very hard to get people excited about midterms, but I will also tell you midterm elections bode well for the incumbents, because your traditional voters are more likely turned off in midterm elections. So he's like, you know what, I don't care. Right. So if you're an incumbent, you enjoy those type of things. Now you mentioned about that hour vote time that they give employees, and that's true. But the way in which the voting laws have changed, right, on election day, you may not be able to get through the line in 1 hour.
No, that's the crazy part.
Right? You're in Broward or Miami-Dade.
Exactly. And so you think about those type of things, like it's becoming harder and harder. And so people are like, you know what, man, it is what it is at this point. I'm just gonna deal with it. I can survive 4 more years. It is what it is. And that's what we're dealing with. I'm gonna give you guys a funny story.
And Pastor McGhee, you I know you gotta find gonna say, like, you hit it right on the head. Like, you've got a group of educated voters, nerds that love this stuff. I mean, can go all day long about this. But then you have other people that's, they're like, but what's going to change in my life?
Correct.
What is this going to do for me? I've gone 4 years, 8 years, whatever. Rick Scott, DeSantis, what's another 4? So it's not moving. It's not dynamic enough for them to take off the day or take off that hour to go and vote when it doesn't make a difference in their lives. And you're going to say something.
Before you say that,
yeah,
it's crazy because we wait for that last day. Right now, you can early vote. The polls are open, but we still in that mindset of, okay, I got to vote on this day, right? And it's hard because, like you said, in certain counties, I'm not going to wait in that line to go and vote. So, they make it easier to do a lot of things in this country. But the one thing that's not as easy is the voting process. Yeah. And the part that we have as an easy piece in terms of only early voting, we're not taking advantage of it. I have a quick question. Has anybody in here already voted?
I did vote by mail.
There it is. So I don't know. Is it a trust factor?
Honestly, I started to vote by mail. 2019. 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030, 2031, 2032, 2033, 2034, 2035, 2036, 2037, 2038, 2039, 2040, 2041, 2042, 2043, 2044, 2045, 2046, 2047, 2048, 2049, 2050, 2051, 2052, 2053, 2054, 2055, 2056, 2057, 2058, 2059, 2060, 2061, 2062, 2063, 2064, 2065, 2066, 2067, 2068, 2069, 2070, 2071, 2072, 2073, 2074, 2075, 2076, 2077, 2078, 2079, 2080, 2081, 2082, 2083, 2084, 2085, 2086, 2087, 2088, 2089, 2090, 2091, 2092, 2093, 2094, 2095, 2096, 2097, 2098, 2099, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, I said, man, I don't trust none of these cats.
Nah, that's what I'm saying.
Doc, here's what's interesting. I did vote by mail, and shockingly, I got an email today from the supervisor of election saying your vote has been counted. That we received your mail-in, your vote's been counted. I was blown. Never gotten an email before, so I'm hoping, right?
Yeah. Hey, listen. That's why I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna suck it up. I'm an early vote, but but mail-in, I like, man. Listen, all that fuss they made about, back. I said I don't trust them. I don't trust them.
Listen, man, I'll tell you a funny story real quick. My mom, this is like generational, right? My mom said, help me with my ballot. I was walking through the ballot for the primary. We got the District 8. Walking through all the candidates. And I got to Gallup's name. And she was like, he sent me a brochure. I'm voting for him. I said, well, Mom, let me tell you about it. I don't care. He sent me something. Because in my mom's mind,
right,
Gallup Franklin III personally sent this to her.
Correct.
Right. And that's all she could think about. But what I learned in that conversation is from a generational standpoint, right? Older generation, they are stuck in one way of how they're going to view a candidate.
That's
right.
True.
And they're unwavering on what they're going to do. And so that works for a while. But in our generation, we're the ones questioning everything. Right. And we ought to, and we need to, because we understand if we don't question it, those behind us coming up behind us, they're going to completely check out the game altogether.
Jami said it earlier. Jami said it earlier. We're not just thinking about crime.
Exactly.
We're not just thinking about race anymore. There's a bigger dynamic to how we look at society. And I think we're in different places now, right? So you have people who are in a place where they want to make sure that the dollars that they make is being used wisely. Yeah. They want to make sure that they're not losing a lot of the dollars that they make. So whether you're black or white, you want to say, hey, I want to make sure that the person who's in power is actually going to work for me, not against me.
Yeah. I have a question for our experts.
That's Jami.
That was me. That's McGhee.
Just a visitor.
I was thinking about this, how I noticed with our younger blacks, there is a trend for more of them swinging and being attracted to the Republican Party. With some of the younger ones. I wonder, do we see the opposite? And I'm just asking, do we see the opposite with younger white? As far as you see what I'm saying? Is there anything that's attracted them to the other side?
So for our younger blacks who are leaning, some of that honestly, it's the hip hop culture. Right? I mean, a lot of your hip hop rappers like Lil Wayne, Gucci Mane, a lot of those guys came out for Trump, and here's why: it was one issue, it was taxes. Right? They were getting destroyed by taxes, so they came out, and people don't look at that, but that influence is real.
Correct.
Right? That influence is real. And so from younger whites, listen, younger whites are growing heavily into progressive. The problem for them though is within both races. Let's use Democrats. Democratic Party has its own inner party fight, right? Because you have liberal, you have moderate, and you have the progressives, right? If you look at progressive Democrats, their frustration with the Democratic Party is you're not putting anybody up that actually speaks to me.
Right.
This is why Bernie Sanders actually, survived for a long time in the race.
It's still relevant.
He's relevant because he's speaking to the heartbeat. Now, what's interesting about that is you would think that an educated politician would try to glean from that because there's something there. They don't. The viewing is, that's just it's going to pass by. Like the Tea Party is going to pass by. And so the challenge of that, you look at young whites, is you're seeing it, but what you're seeing more than anything else, there's two things you're seeing in Florida. The first thing you're seeing in Florida is you're seeing the NPA percentage grow tremendously. They're actually leaving both major parties. Second thing you're seeing is a large percentage of that same population just discontinuing voting altogether. and that's a dangerous trend,
Yeah.
because they're starting to feel like either my vote doesn't count, or I vote for this person, and once they get in office, they completely change what they say they're going to do. And so they say, I don't trust the process altogether. What you said, Dr. Scott, is actually shared by a lot of young voters, which is, well, how do I know that my early vote actually did count? Like, can I really trust this process? And that's the scary thing about this.
Listen, I think there's a piece in there that I disagree with you with, because I believe that Stacey has picked up on what Bernie was putting down. And she is actually galvanizing people on all fronts, young, old. She was literally at several concerts, engaging audiences. She's had people who, I'm going to give you this side note. I asked my leadership class to tell me who you believe is a leader. Of course, many of them are going to pick their parents, but several of them picked, again, your leader, the person that's influencing you. They picked musicians, rappers, So Stacey has figured that out, and Bernie has figured that out, and said, hey, let me tie to these folks to say, we need your vote. We need to make a difference. I think when it comes to picking up on that Bernie train, she has done the best that I've seen in terms of, okay, let me think progressively, let me connect with the people, but more importantly, the piece that I like the most about her is, let me show you, not just tell you, right?
Yeah.
So whether I get the job or not, I'm going to show you what I can do.
But I want to say this, because I think, Jami said this earlier about President Obama. He was an anomaly. And I think Stacey Abrams is that. Because when you look at the Democratic Party as a whole, and I think that's what Pastor McGhee, Darrick, was dealing with, the party as a whole is not doing that. Yes, she stands out. I mean, and you can just see, and she's done a great job to make sure she stayed relevant even in the off years.
Correct.
She kept working. But I think if you look at it as a whole, a lot of them disappeared, and then all of a sudden now
I haven't seen Charlie Chris till it's time to vote.
and then all of a sudden now they're trying to come back. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you're not getting the attention of the influencers, again, our younger generation, they are easily influenced by popularity and not by truth. Doesn't make a difference if it's true or not. It's just who's popular, what's most popular, and that's what I'm going with. And so again, I just feel like as a whole, the Democratic Party has to do a better job of really seeing and staying relevant and doing things and seeing things to energize, that group of individuals.
I think, to your point and to Pastor McGhee's point, when you mentioned that you see a lot of young people moving to the Republican Party, I think you see definitely a lot of young Black men moving in that direction, more so than young Black women moving in that direction. And I think it is in part and parcel because the Republican Party has gleaned in on, I'm going to get Killer Mike to go and speak, on behalf of Herschel Walker or whomever. I'm going to get, Meek Mill. I'm going to get, Lil Wayne. I'm going to get somebody that has a platform, Kanye West, to talk about, our rhetoric. And we haven't caught on when I say we, I'm talking about Democrats in general haven't caught on that might be the way. How do you get Beyonce to go and
I disagree, and I know that's the trend. And I go back to how we started the conversation. How do we pick our candidates, right? And I know this is going to be a whole nother kitchen talk, so I'm going to save it because I think we need to really dive deeper into leadership when you talk about that piece. Right?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, and I'll just use an example of when I was teaching. So I'm teaching the class pharmacokinetics, and sometimes it's difficult for students to like grab hold when it's coming from me. But I understand that sometimes they'll learn better from other students. So what I did was I'll get a group of students who are doing well in the class, and almost like the influencers, I sit down with them and I go in detail about the exam or about whatever it is I want to go over, and then I send them back to the class to do their session.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And just using that as an example of the Democratic Party needs to do a better job of bringing the influencers in, hearing their voice, seeing what they want, and then at the same time giving them, this is what our message is, and allowing them to go out with that message, and galvanize and stimulate the people to want to move in that direction.
So let me ask a question. Let me ask a question. Going back to what, because I think what Jami was making a good point on the Beyonce thing. And here's the question I would ask though, because Doc, I'm hearing what you're saying, but you're also saying that as a person who's observant of what's happening in his class and how you can utilize that. I think the big question has to be asked is, does the Democratic Party think there's a problem? Right? Because everything we're saying sounds great because we think there's a problem. But if you don't think there's a problem, right? You could be thinking this is just a phase, it'll pass up. And so we're gonna remain consistent in what we're doing. And we're all looking and saying, yeah, but that phase may be, I mean, listen, the Republicans, there has not been a Democrat in the governor's office in Florida for over 20 plus years.
Right.
You think about that, right? And to add to that, Alex Sink was the closest woman to winning governor. Andrew's the closest black to winning governor. But the fact of the matter is, there's never been a black nor a woman to sit in the governor's mansion as governor, right? And so at the end of the day, there's a lot of undercurrents. But the question has to be asked: does the Democratic Party actually believe there's a problem? Because as we mentioned earlier, the Republicans knew there was a problem, which is why, as Jami mentioned earlier, they turned everything upside down.
Correct.
Because they acknowledge we got to fix this situation. And if they don't believe there's a problem, then nothing is going to change.
So here's what's going to happen. November voting day is going to come, right? It's going to come and go. And this is what's going to be the problem. This Democratic Party is going to say, y'all didn't come out and vote.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, that's how they see this issue.
Yeah.
There's only a problem when the minority didn't come out and vote. And so then it becomes, you guys got to get out and vote. You got to get out and vote. So when the whole state turns red,
it's already red.
Right. When I'm sorry, you're right. When it continues to stay red.
Right.
I'm an optimist, but I'm also very real.
Right.
I'm a realist. We can hope and dream, but I think we all know that DeSantis is going to win, and poor Aramis, I really want her to win, but I think the cards are stacked against us there. And Val, bless her heart, y'all saw the debate, the other night. She's not going to win.
I think Val has still a good chance.
No, I think she has the best chance.
I think she got a good chance.
I think
out of everybody, she might have the best. I don't know.
I think out of
experts.
Okay.
Y'all the experts.
Back to that. I'm not the expert. I just observe. Like, I'm not a lobbyist. I'm not in politics. I just go and vote. That's all. But I saw the debate. I don't know if y'all saw the debate. I saw the debate.
Yeah, saw the debate.
She's not going to win.
Jamie, here's the thing about that though. What's interesting about you saying that, everything you said, I agree with. I think you need to prepare for a Republican dominant cabinet, governor's office, House, and Senate. I think Marco Rubio wins. I do believe that. But Jamie makes a good point, because as a black woman, she seems way more skeptical of Val's performance than we did at the beginning of the show. I actually was like, I think she did really good. And Jamie's like,
that's true.
That's all the debate.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, right? Because there are things that she picked up on that we didn't see. And I think that's important, right? Because that means there are other people who watch the debate that may not have seen what I thought was good as being good. That's the point I'm making. I think that's a really good observation of her.
Well, that's what happened with Andrew too. I was
going to say, to the question that was asked, does the Democratic Party see a problem? No, they are tone deaf, but they will blame minorities or blacks for losing this election.
Oh, always. I mean,
and I would say
all problems are on our backs. All problems.
And I would say this: if they don't see there's a problem, that's a problem.
I agree.
Yeah,
you know.
But here's the other piece: is what do we do moving forward, Doc? Win or lose?
See,
we keep going back to the same piece. Here's my piece. My students, my proper, all FAMU grads understand the P's. Proper planning prevents poor performance. And we're not planning properly. What can we do? Win or lose moving forward?
Again, as a whole, the party, the Democratic Party needs to get out of denial and start listening to the fact that when some people are saying that there's a problem, maybe they need to realize that, you know what, let's look into it because there might be a problem. You know what I mean? If you're consistently not winning and you consistently blame it on, okay, this one group for not getting out and vote. And then maybe, just maybe, then I'm not giving you something to want to vote for. If that's the case, if you're saying y'all not getting out and vote, but when President Obama, when he was just Barack and he was running for office, people had something to get out and vote for.
And vote for. I agree.
They were motivated, and so now again, I just find, and we said this on almost every show that we talked about voting, the Democratic Party just feels like if you're black, you're supposed to vote for us.
That's correct.
If you don't vote for me, you're not black.
Correct. You lost your culture card.
And what they have to realize, grandma and grandpa will still vote for you just because they're Democrat. And on the other side, you got grandma and grandpa that's going to vote for you because you're Republican, right? But you're dealing with now where it's like, no, I'm not going to vote for you just because mom and daddy vote for you. As a matter of fact, this generation now, the fact that mom and daddy voted for you, I'm going to question.
Listen, this is, again, always a hot topic. I want to say, thank you, Jami, for coming out. You just reminded me why voting is such an important factor, because of my little guy, my main guy. We got to vote because that's the future right there. Pastor McGhee, I love what you're doing. Innovative, keep doing it. I'm hoping that your congregation is really informed on the topics. Continue to, come back and give us this good word. And of course, Brother Scott, man, your wisdom surpasses understanding, man. So this is Kitchen Talk CTC, conversations that cook. Every Thursday, we're going to be hitting this subject again. Shout out to Lisa. Shout out to Jamal on the background, who is our engineer for the night. And of course, we got to shout out JT Money. We need you guys definitely to get out to vote. We will be bringing you guys back because there are a couple of things we didn't even hit. That's how hot this topic was tonight. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for showing out. Till the next time. Bye, everybody.
Peace.
Adios.
Follow us, YouTube, Instagram. Give us a like. Give us a follow. Thank you for coming.